musician friends, dealing with the industry, dealing with the sector, and trying to find solutions to, keep us, first of all, working in our region, promoting the diversity of our region, and placing us in a global context as a global partner eventually. We'll discuss about that. So I'm George Perrault. I'll present myself later, but I'll start from my distinguished guest here. And I would like each of you to speak for a minute. Oh, and we have Mr. Minister.
Hello.
You're staying here? No, okay.
Sure. You guys can stay there.
So, yeah, as you know, we improvise. We're from music, so I replace somebody that's ill, but we'll do great. So I would like each of you to present quickly who you are with your experience and what you're doing lately the last 5-10 years, 1 minute each. Dear Mila, starting with you.
Okay, my name is Mila. I have two hats on my head. From one side, I'm the vice chair of the Bulgarian Music Association, which is the major representative organization of the independent music performers. There, I'm working, my focus is on international activities and projects. Also, my other hat is that I'm a co-organizer of SOA Live Music Conference in Sofia, which is now 2 years old. My background is I'm an educated musician, classical one. I went to the dark side of this scene many years ago, like dealing with managing artists for many years, musicians and actors, then like organizing events, concerts, festivals, and I was in these teams. This is like my background. I'm also in the board of European Music Council for a year, so trying to do some more valuable policy making, especially on that subjects.
So you're right, one of the right person here to see the multi-dimensional discussion we need to have, which 1 hour will not be enough. We'll try to summarize. Marili from Estonia.
Yes, hello, my name is Marili. I'm a project manager at Music Estonia, which is an expert office and music industry development center in Estonia. And for the past, actually Music Estonia just got 10 years old, so I have been on the scene since almost the very beginning of the expert office, and my focus has been mostly facilitating the development of the industry, supporting the industry with different innovation and development programs, capacity building, knowledge building programs, and also at the moment I'm focusing on international and innovation projects mainly.
A lot of keywords: capacity building, innovation, international projects. We'll come back on that. Dear Angeliki, my dear Angeliki, please present yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angeliki Spiridaki. I'm coming from Greece. I started off about 20 years ago as a professional musician, trained exactly like Milas, so I'm not going to repeat that story. But I've also done studies on cultural policy and development, and this is where I have been more active professionally as a cultural manager over the last 15 years. Apart from organizing concerts and festivals and all these cultural productions, I have designed pilot programs for cultural programs when it comes to education and combine that in order to reduce social and economical injustices via cultural activities. And the last thing is that I am the founder of the first bottom-up music export office initiative in Greece, because something like that never existed, and there is a massive need for the community to have a safe space that I can actually feel comfortable and join forces to claim more things for the community in my country.
Alexander.
I am Alexander Velinovsky, the biggest part of the audience already known because I come from Skopje, from Macedonia. I've been active from 2005, organizing different kind of cultural exchanges and events all around Europe. In that time I was based in the Netherlands, and from 2010 I actively operate from Macedonia. Nowadays I run independent cultural center, which is called Public Room. Independent, I mean by independence, financially independent. And that is, I think, the purpose I'm invited here, because it is considered not only in Macedonia, but is considered in the whole region as a bright
Best case,
business,
right?
and yes, and it is sort of a proof that the culture can make money. And can produce the money and can produce a surplus. So yes, it's not only spending. And besides that, as an organization, we have been a lead partner to a few projects funded by Creative Europe, and several times we have been a partner. So that is more or less the experience. But most of the projects that we are organizing are taking place outside.
Okay.
Because they're based on mobilities, you know, and exchange.
Okay.
So a lot of partners all around Europe, and there is a festival here called Skopje Design Week, which started 2011, and that we are mostly known for. So that would be it.
We'll get back. We'll
Not to
get
take the
back.
time of the minister.
But
you know.
I hope the audience already hears the complementarity of the panelists. Dear Minister, thank you for being here. No, I'm saying it because in Greece, I mean, I would never see a minister joining if there were no other ministers. So thank you for being with us. And please tell us a few things about yourself, if you don't mind.
My name is Naiden Todorov. Yeah, currently Minister of Culture of Bulgaria, actually conductor. Doing my job as a conductor for the last 34 years. I don't know which one is more interesting, being minister dealing with disasters, or being conductor dealing with beauty, with music. So the Ministry of Culture in Bulgaria is the institution that does give or does not give money for the cultural process in Bulgaria. I mean, we are trying to give money, and we're always being stopped of doing so. But I think this is everywhere like this.
I guess.
Yeah. What I found out in my times in the Ministry of Culture, because this is not my first time there, is that I was shocked to understand that most of the people in the administration do want to help. And you know, when you're a musician or painter or author or whatever, you see that the ministry, not only in Bulgaria, is not helping very much. And on the end, we see, okay, those of us who can go to work in the ministry see that actually people in the ministry do want to help. The problem is the law, always. And the problem is that people who make the laws do not understand what is necessary and what has to be done. But I'm trying to use my time there, hopefully not too long, to help in this direction.
But I think, thank you, because you're actually giving us a step on developing this discussion. I would like to ask the audience, hello Tomek, how many of you have been funded in Creative Europe projects? Raise your hands, please.
Oh, there's some.
So it's like, what?
Not enough, but some.
5% of the room? Okay. How many of you have been funded by a European scheme, funding scheme?
Quite zero.
Okay. How many of you have been funded by a national funding scheme? Oh,
Some.
oh, there are more. Good. May I call you Naiden?
Sure.
Okay. The idea here will be in this very small frame time to start from, I think, added value of those projects. I mean, me with being here in Macedonia with logging and everyone, I can tell you in numbers that 6-7 years ago, I was the only one here with Nikos Stefanidis from Thessaloniki, from Solun, being here. And this year, we are 15 Greeks. So it helps create bounds, okay? But there is an issue based on the structural dimension that you mentioned regarding what the cultural sector needs to do when it's about creativity and the perception from all times that we are doing art. For instance, in Greece, when you used to say to a cultural department of a governmental body, What about the taxes for the artist? What about the IRS VAT codes, which do not exist for managers, for DJs, and so? How are we supposed to help monetization for these artists? They were saying, oh, George, they are artists. It's not a business. So this parenthesis, which is still very valid, beside all the problems that you mentioned, and we don't have the time to mention what is the weight of culture in a world where people are giving money for defense and blah, blah, blah. The two-side aspect now is that when Creative Europe was reformatted, and when Music Moves Europe started back in 2015 with a preliminary discussion, well, everyone here has to understand that the reality is that the young generation is speaking about a new business model eventually in the music industry. Cultural organizations are speaking about the music sector, where the music industry is inside the music sector, which means education, instrument conservatories is not yet a priority at the moment of Music Moves Europe, because we speak with the first stakeholders we have, right? But nonetheless, things will take time. I think what we will try to say here is what are the opportunities that have arisen from the previous packages, what should be done in the next one, and what are the challenges, and then the opportunities. I would like to start with you, Marily, as we said before, because we are together in a large-scale Creative Europe project called HEMI. Many of you must know it. And just to give you the floor, I remember that HEMI and MOST, the other large-scale Creative Europe project, were the two first ever large-scale Creative Europe projects won by countries of the region. Now, why is a huge discussion, but what were the benefits, on your point of view, with your experience from Creative Europe? What is the added value? Is it in terms of local communities, in terms of structuralization? Marily.
Yes, I think it has kind of two kind of perspectives when speaking of benefits. The one is kind of this wider perspective for us as an organization, or us as a facilitator of for the industry, is that we gain the networks and connections through the project, and also we have a kind of understanding of the region, what are the trends and challenges, and we can then use it to help our own local industry to communicate this information to them and to develop. But directly for the local community, I think the benefits are maybe a bit more difficult to kind of map, but I think it's more of a long-term benefit, because for those who have been part of the project from our sector, I think it takes a bit more time to really use the insights they get from the projects. I mean, the knowledge, the networks, but I think a really important thing that it has given to us is the visibility of the region. And I think this is the most valuable thing that have come out of HEMI. I think that we are more kind of visible as a part of the music industry, because it's easier to put us on the map when we are together than separately. But of course, Estonia is a bit of a kind of an odd man out in this project, because we have a lot of like Balkan countries and Central Europe countries, and then there's Estonia. So for us, it has been maybe a bit challenging, because we are not feeling maybe so closely to the region as maybe the other partners have been. But I think definitely the networks and also the kind of good platform for future collaborations, I think this is the most valuable for us.
Thank you. You could have given more numbers, but I will ask Mila, because Mila, between other things, as all of us here wearing so many hats, as always, Mila, you also were involved and are involved in MOST. So
Yes.
you also seen from another perspective the added value of working in one of the first large-scale Creative Europe projects.
Yes, and I can say that it was a project that had a great impact on the region, because it provided, especially for our country, like we were one of 10 partners or even more, because, so we had it was very impactful because it provided things that were never available in our country before. First, it provided trainings for managers. Like, we don't have anywhere where you can have any kind of training to be manager in the field of music. Working on the field and collaborate with people that are around you. So we have a very good feedback and very good results that continue because the project ended this year. We actually succeeded to create a community which is regional. We see that these people that we got together, like emerging artists and also young managers, they started collaborate and work together, and they started really shaping a community which is regional. And for us it's very important, because if we work we are not very big markets, we are not very small countries, because there are small countries in Europe, but we are not big markets. And to work together is extremely important in terms of collaboration, in terms of the size of the market when it's united, and of course in terms of staff exchange and people that can work, and because we are anyway situated quite closely to each other. This was very important. Also, it gave, as in Bulgaria, we have different programs, but there is not a program that we don't have an export office yet. We're trying to fostering this kind of activities until we hopefully secure some sustainable funding line for it for the future. But the idea is that we didn't have this focused support for artists to go to showcases, to go to international forums, which is extremely important, and this opened the opportunity for a lot of them to go to this kind of forums and conferences that it's we all go to, but for them wasn't something that we did before. And most is actually for me and for a very good and some example of the very really big impact it made. Of course, every big project, we had a lot of challenges, but I really believe and I'm happy with the result, because it really changed a lot.
Okay, I think I would like to, I'll give you a few minutes to figure the numbers, and I will go to Angeliki. Before going to Angeliki, I want to give some facts regarding how, on my point of view, these funding schemes are working. We discussed about it with the ladies before, that at some point, when we were struggling during COVID with this new partnership of HEMI, which was 10 partners, 9 countries, all of us, different VAT, taxes, proof certifications. We had applied to do something creative, and we found ourselves being behind Excels and legal bodies and accountant all the time. Having that said, here in the room I see Marton and Tomek, which we knew way before HEMI, and we were working on other Creative Europe programs seen from the Western big countries. We were in one incubation acceleration program, which I always use that example. When we addressed to the rest of Europe an application call for entrepreneurship and startups, over the 300 applicants we had, 10 were not from UK, Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy, and Spain. So that's when, here in Skopje, together with the team of Login, back in 2017, we said, let's focus on such a project, because we know we're not at the same level. We were not countries 60, 70 years ago, big countries like France or Germany. So the pros and cons without any complex of inferiority, but we need to focus on the region. We need to develop capacity building, as you said, Alexander. Strange words back then, capacity building, but I'm a music artist. What is capacity building? I want to go and play somewhere, and so on and so forth. Long story short, with HEMI, we got 1,180 music applications from the region. First time ever this happened. For the incubator, we had 190 applications from the region. So what you just said showed us that thanks to these pilot projects, because in that case for us, Creative Europe helped bodies like us to try and develop a pilot to make the mapping. But we are a non-for-profit organization. The rest of the sector did not understand that, and they did not apply because they wanted to apply for festival. Long story short, Angeliki, with your recent experience in small scale and your vision, being from Greece, where instead of Bulgaria or even Macedonia, we don't have a co-funding support from the state if we win a Creative Europe project, so it's on our own. What do you think of the benefits that you can get from this on the long term as a body that wants to support, educate, train, network people?
Well, in our case, it has been very, very difficult because, as I said, it's a bottom-up initiative, meaning that we have zero support from the government. In Greece, at least, it sounds as it is very, very similar to Bulgaria and Macedonia in many cases, because the cultural policy framework and the model that is currently in place is such that it does not allow the funding of any company which is a profitable company. Meaning that if it is that you wish to get some funding and then never fund the whole program, the whole proposal, you have to be a non-profit organization, which is insane because there are people working there, the people that they need to have access to funding or at least some kind of funding in order to be able to design a long-term plan and a strategy. So that's one problem. The second problem is that the current model of cultural policy, or public cultural policy, does not incorporate contemporary cultural activities. And okay, keep in mind that this is Greece, and the national identity and cultural identity of Greece is most of the times, or not all the times, related to the antiquities, archaeological sites, which activities do get funding, but other than that, it is very difficult or rather impossible to get some funding. To be fair, there have been some chances since 2015, since the minister at the time, Myrsini Zorba, did invent this platform where non-profit only, again, organizations can actually apply to some funding, but we're talking about very small amounts, and they never fund.
5,000 max, yeah.
No, you can get a bit more than that, but the thing is that you can never apply for a longer-term plan. You're not allowed to apply for a second year in a row, so they want to do something just for 1 year, and the difficulty of the bureaucracy that you have to deal with in order to get this 5,000 euros, as Joe said, is incredible. So it's very discouraging for most people to have access to public funding when it comes to that. So that's one problem. The second problem is that when it comes to European projects and Creative Europe projects and European funds in general, at least in Greece, they are not accessible at the moment, or the people working for that, you know, and the dissemination of this kind of activities and information is actually very small, if I wouldn't say none, or very limited.
Okay.
At least this is what we hear from the community that has been building up the initiative. Mm-hmm. The benefit is that, of course, there are people like George that have been working in the field, you know, for so many years, and at least in our experience, it is actually necessary for the community to join up forces and actually invent and devise proposals and strategies in order to claim access not only to the strategies and policies that will be designed and followed, but to actually invest in the future of the community and the sector as whole. And this is something that the European Union and Commission has actually recognized about 20 years ago, that is via participatory processes that do involve the community, which is going to be at the center of attention and the end beneficiaries, that they do need to take account what they need. It should be employed when it comes to policy making, and it should be employed when it comes to actually providing solutions and strategies, and therefore funds.
So I kept you, Alexandra, because you said some keywords and you were mixing the, let's say, business side and the creative side together, and you said you are self-sustainable, combining both aspects. So that will be a discussion after I ask Mr. Todorov, or Naden? Naden. Ignore me, Naden. What is, I mean, Angeliki pointed out a problem that I think we have in many of our countries, because our countries are not yet using culture as a soft power, as cultural diplomacy, as they could. I mean, for Greece, they use it with the antiquities. Now we have so many tourists, we think, oh, it's okay, we have short-term money, so we don't care about strategy. And the issue is that the counseling and the strategy is short-term, and every change of government everything that has been done by Naden, oh, I don't do it because it was made by Naden. In Bulgaria, how do you work with those perspectives? Is there a preliminary discussion? Do you do bottom-up and top-down discussion with what Angelikis calls the community or the sector or associations? How do you plan and how come you support the projects that are being won by Bulgarian companies in Creative Europe schemes?
Well, first of all, it's terrible that you ask me the question about strategy, because Bulgaria doesn't have such. I mean, we are really trying for the last 15 years to build a cultural strategy, and yeah, we're still trying. Why do we not succeed? Because of quite few reasons. One of them is what you said. Every government has different idea, and especially in Bulgaria, some of the politicians believe, they're not most of them, but some of the politicians believe that the state has to fund the culture.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
The art, right?
Yes. No, not only the art, also the cultural heritage, everything. Well, but we have more and more politicians who believe that this is not what the state has to do.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, I should say that there are some laws that help. They do help. As example, we don't have VAT for the tickets.
Okay.
This is already something. Well, we don't see it as much, but it is something. We have our National Fund Culture that helps with different projects and also with co-financing the Creative Europe programs. I have to say it, I had some troubles dealing with the board of the National Fund last time I was minister, telling them, explaining to them why they should co-finance the Creative Europe programs. They said, okay, we didn't choose it, why should we? But keyword collaboration. This is what we need. In Bulgaria, I believe it's the same here, same in Greece. We are quite individuals. I mean, everyone works for himself or herself.
Of course.
Yeah. We have still to learn to work together. And what I believe is that Creative Europe is one of the tools that can teach us to work together. And this is the reason I believe that it has to continue, because we know now there are some troubles there.
You're absolutely right. Just to help you go on the direction I would like you to go after with Alexander. During COVID, our evaluator, told us at some point, it was me and Ivan Toromanovsky working here from Macedonia, said, George, we are here to help a unified Europe. The long-term perspective for us through Creative Europe is not only what you will do as Music from Greece, as, I don't know, Sofia So Live. That's the cherry on top if you manage to do something good with the match. What we care is you to understand that you have a neighborhood, to create the first networking bonds, so that instead of looking at UK or America, you also look in your neighborhood. And this will take time. So we are creating an homogeneous market. That's long term, but that's actually how the policy of funding is initially created, which makes it a very difficult jargon to understand for us. Either we are creators, or music professionals, or promoters, the other word, those who are making the money and who were not initially at the discussion. How do you deal with this? Do you think there's a need that the Ministry of Culture works maybe closer to the Ministry of Interior, to Ministry of Development? Do you think that with initiatives such as the one that Mila, Ruth, and others are doing in Bulgaria, you need the bottom up to bring you more data in order to prove yourself to your counterparts that collaboration, long-term? What do you think about this?
First of all, the organization of Mila is doing better than us in this. I didn't say that, so, you know. Second, I will go back first to Europe. People today forget the motto of European Union. They really tend to forget it. And it is united in diversity. I mean, we don't have to be equal. I would love to go to a competition together with you for conducting. You know, we will have the same thing. We will have to conduct. This is okay. This is right.
Whenever you want.
I'll be better.
I'm ready.
We have to help those that are different. And we have to build market for everyone, but not make everyone being the same like the other one. In Bulgaria, we have another problem. And this problem is a wall that somehow we succeeded to build in the past years between independent artists and state-funded artists. And this is a disaster. This is a full disaster. Because those people, they have to work for the same thing. They have to have the same rights. Nothing is like that. And this is where the Ministry of Culture has to work next years. I'm not sure about the other ministries, I mean, Minister of Finances. But, you know.
Of employment, you know.
Exactly. You know, we say in Bulgaria the Prime Minister is the second important person in the country. The first one is Minister of Finances. We have to work on getting away of this wall between the artists. And there is a long way that we have to do. And I think that Creative Europe is one
tool.
Of the tools.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It's pretty clear. Alexander, you mentioned before, and I think that's a connecting point with the discussion that I also asked to Nathan. You mentioned that you are sustainable. You mentioned that you are in balance actually with a business model, which is not only waiting for funding. How did you arrive at that point, and what would be your advice for us, which are trying, you know, to become sustainable, because that's a main issue in several projects. Where to start?
Well, initially we definitely used some funding, you know, from the Creative Europe. Oh, sorry. Is it okay? Yes, initially we used, yes, but I mean, we didn't spend, you know, like a fools, you know, just spending money, but trying to generate a reputation, try to generate an audience, and then the initiative is becoming a youth center, you know, a place where we can gather all the natives here, Macedonians, I mean, and let's say nowadays we have almost 30% foreign visitors coming there, because it's a little bit of a more peculiar place, you know, a little bit different than the rest of the palette here, what is offered, you know, and so that visibility that you create in the first place attracts also other funds, you know, and that attracts national funding also, because then you are legitimate, like you have a different kind of festivals nowadays here, and they receive generous amount, but you get, you never have to forget the private sector, because the companies are full of money, and they always are looking for creative places which they want to finance, you know, and it takes some time, you know, till you convince them, you know, instead of portraits of Santorini are good, you know, archaeological places and organizing some kind of events. We have created much more live and vivid, you know, scene, and where young people are present. And if you want them to hear about your products and services, etc., then you have to become friend with us, you know.
So you are actually, I think if I get it right, you managed to connect what Nathan mentioned before, and all of us indirectly, the creators, whatever they are, musicians or something else, the creators, the mindset of a creator,
creative industry representatives,
and the
so all
service providers or the business, you made them go together.
Yes.
So what are the challenges you see? How did you manage to, step by step arrive on this commute between those two?
There is one thing that wherever the other they see a problem, I see an opportunity. It's very simple. Instead of sitting down and complaining together with your colleagues how bad is the life and how bad is the government and the minister, etc., you can wrap up. Your sleeves, and start doing something. It's always like that because money is everywhere. Trust me, money is everywhere. On whichever door you knock, you can find you can get financing.
But you need to know which door to knock and how to then
Exactly,
open it and,
and
so on
which
and so
language
forth,
you
right?
speak. Because we are talking about different languages, different levels.
Absolutely.
So,
We speak all Macedonian, but we speak Macedonian with the head of Coca-Cola, and if I'm a conductor, I won't understand each other, right?
it depends how you sell it.
Exactly.
Let's
Well,
not put labels.
Aha.
Sorry, please. Let's
I
not
don't know
put
if they have
labels,
financed
like
the
where you have to
conference
come
already,
from
so.
to be able to speak with a Coca-Cola. I
No,
can
I-
tell you different stories for that, but I don't want to.
No,
I really
what
am
we
not
were
a fan
saying, just-
of putting label if someone is an artist that he cannot have actually business talk. People are people; they are totally different.
I like it,
Thank-
but I don't think that's what we want to say, and you can take the floor now, because you're working with the industry, right? You're working with export offices, which I would say they have an institutional aspect as well. You work for the market and not to gain something from them. So industry, we need to sell tickets, for example, okay? And a secretariat, a music office, an export office, which is here to help without waiting something back as a benefit, a financial benefit. So those two perspectives, also with the music artist or the service providers, is a different language, and that's, I think, what we wanted to point out, that you speak the same language, but if it's a ministry, or if it's somebody from a multinational, or if somebody from marketing, or an artist, it's very difficult to get together and understand each other at some point. But since we're here, thank you, Alexander, for your points. Mila, what do you think for sustainability? Man, are we talking about sustainability, or are we still talking about development in the region?
In terms of what? In terms of the
What we have to
funding for culture?
do to get the funding and to use it properly in order to build this, well, to develop, let's call it a market or a sector, whatever, the perspective is.
I think it's constant work on different fronts, because I can start from the European level, where there are programs for our sector that we apply for. It's not only Creative Europe, it's not only cooperation projects, and we know that. There's also when you go to Culture Moves Europe or different, that they are mostly beneficial for the artists. But there we have a lot of work also, because European Commission have programs for us. But little by little, these programs are mostly, honestly, supposed to execute some European agenda and less execute the interests of the sector that we represent. So I think that this is something that we, on this level, let's say the funding level, we need to work for. Also, we'll give the perfect, for me, example with the networks. Europe function with networks that are cultural networks in the arts that are funded by the European Commission. And at the end, you have the networks of festivals, of performers, of music organization, of jazz promoters or whatever, yes. And at the end, for them to exist, they apply for these projects, and at the end of the day, for 2 years or 3 years period, they execute the project, and the last thing that actually stays there is actually representing a sector and their members. So this is something that we need to work on, but this is from one side, so we can gain sustainability. We cannot be sustainable if we don't work for who we represent or for our sector, because we need to fulfill the requirements of the fundings only. Then, in terms of, I'm going nationally because, like, the European Money for Culture are extremely important of a great impact for us from my experience on the different levels, and for the region to have the national support and co-funding program is absolutely essential. And if we want in our countries and markets to be equally participating in the cultural processes in Europe. Because, like, for cultural organizations, I'm referring also for what Angeliki said, like cultural organizations which are usually non-profit to be more representable, they are absolutely, it's not possible, for giving the example of Bulgaria, but I'm absolutely sure that in Macedonia is the same. Like, if you want to be a partner in a large-scale project which actually provides the biggest opportunities supposed to provide, you need you cannot be a partner if you don't have a co-funding program in your state, because you can never find this money, like being a non-profit. Like, we are a Bulgarian Music Association, a representative organization of musicians.
Yeah, because you don't have the structural.
We don't
the
have, like,
employees.
we are functioning by grants, like, for different things. And this is a very important thing, but and it's not a matter of if we can do our project. Like, we might be a representative organization of musicians, but they are cultural organizations that are not representing a sector, but what they do for it is of great importance.
So this is a national problem, actually, right?
And I think that it is essential for the authorities and for the states and to understand that if they don't support that, that means that they actually willingly do not want to be part of the European cultural process and to have a vote and to be an equal partner. This is absolutely, it needed to be known, and especially where in the place we are also here, because, like, I know that it's struggling with, in our country we have this program, we fought for it, because I can say it from the side of the beneficiaries.
How many years were you working for that?
I don't know. I remember 3 years, and I have colleagues I know that work for a long time. But actually, when we joined MOST, it was we joined after, because the previous Bulgarian partner who was participating in the application process dropped out because they didn't know how they can. They were a small organization, very nice, but couldn't handle that, because they had to find like 200,000 euro
plus VAT.
Yeah, okay. We are in this situation. It's different with us, but and we fought for it. And when we joined, it was something that we had the voice. Like, thanks God, with all our efforts, our organization has also this voice. But I don't know how it happened. At some point, because of different programs, it was during COVID. So the programs and the problems were totally different for the National Culture Fund, where this program is. So we somehow succeeded, because nobody was looking at this.
Okay.
And it was actually managed extremely well, because they make the research, how many projects they are funded with the partners from Bulgaria, and they build the budget based on the needs.
You say they? Who they? Sorry, I've lost you.
It's a National Culture Fund and Creative Europe desk in Bulgaria. They collaborate on that. They coexist.
Beneath the Ministry of Culture?
It's
all of them, okay.
Yeah, it's like attached to
it's
a secondary,
notes, huh?
how do you say it? Secondary distributor of
what
budget.
we have to do in Greece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is very important. Then, of course, when all this mess of COVID and a lot of programs that were actually on the head of National Culture Fund, who suddenly turn out that has to operate for like 20 times more budget than for the whole its existence for a year, because they had to
That's
during
not
COVID.
right. 30 times. 30 times.
30 times, sorry. And then when things started changing, I'm just telling the story because we fought a lot and we are fighting every year. And Naiden is a witness of all this, trying to convince some people, because this is not a dictatorship. There are boards, there are people, there are different interests. And independently, if I believe, my colleagues believe who work in that, if he believes, there are people who make the decisions there.
and they at the end, like, because they are, they are used to interfere in every decision and project. They said, but why, as he said, why do we need to fund it? And they decide to cut without even researching how or what is the need of the program. So it is a constant fight, but we have it. And thanks to this project I mentioned, you asked me about numbers. I don't know what numbers you want me to tell you.
Just
I can
something
tell
that
you
could be
like 60
representative.
festival participants, 32 bands, like over 70 young managers, and I can give you another number. Can please people from the audience that have been part of MOST raise hands? Okay, so there are some hands there, so there also.
Well, half of the audience in PIN this year is MOST and Hemi, I can tell you.
Well, let's see. And this is like something that I missed the previous time, but I wanted to say. But it's essential to have this support because anyway, we are not part of Europe in this.
So it takes
case.
two to tango, that's clear. One, how together we can do something nationally, then how nationally we can do something together at European level. But because we would like to give the mic and have a question, Mary, just to you, because you are the oldest one of all of us here, acting as a house, as a secretary, depending on the countries, with many names. Anyway, Music Estonia is a great model because Estonia is a digitalized country. You've done everything differently than us. How do you cope on sustainability and on keeping the engagement between startup, Music Estonia, Live Estonia, Tallinn Music Week? How do you manage this? And could you teach us maybe, or could we use your models?
I can at first add to the topic that Mila just finished, that in Estonia we have the co-financing model for Creative Europe projects, which is 50 to 70%. So we still are facing the same problem with Music Estonia, as we are also a non-profit organization and we can't compete with the industry by selling services or whatever. So this is still a problem for us as well, what we have to lobby all the time with the government, that when we are part of the international projects and we have self-financing up to 50%, we have to find the funds to really be part of these projects. But first, Music Estonia, as I think I mentioned, that we have been for 10 years, and I mean, it's still always a kind of a struggle with all kind of, it's still project-based funding. Of course, we have some funding from the government, but as you know, the situation where Estonia is geographically, we are facing a lot of cuts in culture now because of there has to be more money in the defense area. So this affects us as well, and I think it's not getting better, it's rather getting worse. The cuts are at first 5% and then up to 10% from our budget for the music and culture. So this is, we are in a state that we have to start finding new models and new opportunities and looking in the private sector and find new opportunities. But I think the strongest maybe asset we have at Music Estonia is that we have really built a community of the industry. We have really brought in together industry, and what we previously have talked here as well, that it's really important when we are kind of sending the messages as for the policy makers, that we have to take the kind of from the ground level the message, and this is what I think Music Estonia is doing quite well, that we are really we are really advocates of the industry, not that we are like thinking we should do this and that, but we really take the insights from the industry and bring it to the policy level.
So it's
needed.
the bottom-up
It's
discussion.
always bottom-up.
We need to do it more and more and more,
Yes.
apparently. That's what I understand from all of us, in order to give the tools to the ministers of culture to then lobby themselves for the
So
budget,
it's a lot of
to get more
lobbying all the
budget.
time, but I have to admit it's very difficult at the moment for us as well.
Okay, I have other questions for the three of you, but because we are almost 10 minutes before the end of... Do you have any questions, dear audience? on why it takes so long, why you think there's not enough money for you, or any suggestion, any question? There's one question. Oh, Ranar? It's an Estonian guy.
Thank you. So I think, thank you for the chat so far, and I think every single one of you has mentioned or used the word community in one context or another in your talk. What do you see is, on a local level in all these countries, are the biggest drawbacks or the biggest blocks for private and public sector collaboration? Because we talk a lot about creating an international community, but is it not most important to start with the community inside of the country, both with private companies as well as public sector organizations? So what are some of the biggest hurdles, some of the biggest issues that are stopping the private and the public sector from working together? Thank you.
May I ask Nate and Alexander to answer to this one? Like, quick,
Why
both
the
of
bad
you?
questions to me? I mean,
No, because I keep Angeliki for the end.
look, community is exactly what we miss. Even in the sector, people are not working together. This is the problem. And I see it in Bulgaria when we start some program. People from the sector that are not having some positives out of this program, that they start asking why this program. They're not helping their colleagues. So there's something we have to learn here. And first of all, second, on European level, we have to work much more together. I mean, I don't see it. Okay, our National Fund Culture has some programs for making collaborations between nations, countries, and so on, mobilities and so on. Still not enough. But first of all, we are not well already in the country with that. I want to say something to Mary. I hate to quote Churchill, but you can do it in your country. I mean, I'm not sure it's true, but it's a very nice legend that when they wanted to cut the money for culture, for the defense, and he said, okay, then what are we defending? You know, I believe that national identity, I believe that national security starts with culture. And culture builds communities. And those cultural communities build the nation. And the nations together, again, together with the culture, build Europe.
Very emotional, thank you. Alexander?
Just to reply to the question that the gentleman has posted, first is the legislation. That is the biggest obstacle, if exists, you know, depends in each country, but here in Macedonia definitely it is, in order to make this joint venture, what you've asked. And second is horizontal cooperation. If the sector is not unified and it's not cooperating, you can forget about it. There are too many individuals. We all know that too big egos, you know, all around. I don't know if you have listened, you have been present to the previous panel here. Some of you maybe, you know, but the message was unification only, you know, toto cotugno, unite Europe, you know. That's just on a local level.
Angeliki, you want to add something as well to this question?
I couldn't agree more with what the two previous gentlemen said, and to what the Mr. Minister said. Culture is the mean of actually uniting people, and this has been recognized by international and supranational cultural policy authorities, and this is something that we can all work with and for, because unless we do that, what are we doing? And one thing that Mila said earlier, okay, Greece is one of the first countries that was in the EU.
In the region, yes.
In the region, you know, back in the 50s, when after the Second World War. Nonetheless, for me, what Bulgaria and the ministry and Mila have been doing, especially in the recent years, is an example. They're working, they're doing an outstanding job in actually deleting these barriers between the countries and unifying the Balkans and actually putting forward the power of people of the Balkan region and creating international collaborations which are very, very precious for everybody. And they can only benefit the communities, and by that I do not imply just regional communities in the country, the geographical territory of Bulgaria, but we're talking the global community that we're facing since zeros, since the 2000 with the globalization. And as Mr. Minister said, is a common culture for everyone. And we're not talking about separating lines, but rather about bringing up the unique attributes and the diversity of each and all of us in order to join up in a unified world that we all are supposed to live in, respect, and live together. So unless we do that with cultural activities, there is nothing to talk about. So thank you very much, George, and thank you everyone for the contribution, the discussion, because I feel very happy to be here and very honored to be invited in the panel and bring up all these very, very important issues that are a problem for all of us.
Any other question? Yes.
Sorry.
You have 2 minutes because logging is going to come and say,
On top of my head. Ooh, I'd be cut off my head by logging. That'd be nice. So this may be a naive question. I have been a great many times to your amazing country, Bulgaria, funded by Culture Moves Europe. I was a beneficiary of Creative Europe, so I love it already. So this has already done a great deal for me. And I was one of the finalists for Hemi, so that has done a great deal for me as well. And but I want to ask, and honestly is a naive question. We are developing countries, right? We are the poor relatives of Europe. We are, right? We know that. We look at each other and we pat in the back and we say like, yeah, but we are the Balkans. So I'm just asking, honestly asking, does the rest of Europe know that? Do they know what we struggle with? Do they know that our basic salary? Do we know what it means for a musician to travel? What it means that... I'm so happy you're a conductor, by the way. You're my hero today. You're a minister that is a conductor. Thank you. But it's an honest question. Does the rest of the Europe knows what it is to be in our shoes?
May I just ask you a question of your question? Is the question, do they know or do they care?
Well, that's the subsequent, I think. Yeah, it follows.
Yeah, because these are totally different things. Yes, they know. The authorities, especially the people who are supposed to know, they have all the numbers. They have everything you can like, and we are also participating in providing those numbers. The problem is if they care. And to make them care, you need to find the way to tell them that that will be a problem for them if this goes bigger. So we are a lot of people who are like talking about this and have different proposals and different actions taking. But yes, I think they know. And no, I'm not sure if they care.
well...
Because I think the problem is that
Leah,
unity...
I'm sorry, I'll have to interrupt, sorry. And I would like to connect your two questions because I'm a little baby of Europe. It's not they. I don't agree with both of you. Who is they?
It's us.
Yes, that's true.
It's us, it's they. I think the struggle is everywhere in the globe at the moment. Because do you know how the struggle is in Poland or in France or in Germany? Do you think all of them are rich? So it's another question. And everyone said this is a unifying character. We are just more recent countries. We have to face it. The good thing is we don't have to reproduce the mistakes or all the models that we have from Western countries. We can innovate and start from scratch because we don't have the infrastructure many times. And maybe to wrap it up, because we're already 30 seconds late, I would like to say my experience from Creative Europe, that actually the funding scheme was the easiest partner than all the other partners from each territory. It was way more difficult to say who is going to pay a individual person. 5 organizations could not pay them because they were not allowed in their statutes from the national law to pay them. The European Union was saying find a way. So it's not homogeneous. And Creative Europe is here to help. Is it enough? No. But can we use it properly? I think the Bulgarian model here, Macedonian as well, by the way, because login, well, go figure. Greece is a member of the EU since '81, and we still have no funding scheme at all, no export office at all, no National Association of Venues of blah, 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 nothing. So yes, you are a model for us in the region, and Macedonia as well, by the way, because Login, who is a private company, known as a promoter, as a festival organizer, is in Most and in Hemi, and he was helped by the Macedonian government as well. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, sustainability is the most important thing of that, because if you're funded 1 year and then on the next year you're not in a 4-year project,
So
better not to be
let's
funded
stay
at all.
let's stay another hour
Yeah.
here. Let's keep the panel. Thank you very much for being here. You'll meet everyone for the next 2 days. Thank you for Print Conference for inviting us. Thank you, everyone, for joining.